Our speaker today, members of his staff, gave me about a 30-page bio on him. Go to the website. You can read all of this gentleman's accomplishments and then more. Jim Durkin, the House Republican leader, was officially inaugurated to his third term as House Republican leader on January 11th of 2017 for the 100th General Assembly. And as you know, he is now the House of Republican leader in our Illinois State Assembly. He has a long and distinguished career, but I just want to bring to everybody's attention a little bit of his background. Jim Durkin was born in 1961 into a large Chicago family of 8 boys. Explains a lot. Raised in the western suburb of Westchester, Jim and all 7 of his brothers are Fenwick Friars. They graduated from Fenwick High School. As did Michael Hayes, who first hired Jim Durkin as one of his law clerks. Jim Durkin attended Illinois State University, earned a degree in criminal justice, completed his formal education by receiving his Juris Doctor from the John Marshall Law School. Currently, Jim, his wife Celeste, and the family reside in Western Springs, Illinois. So without any further ado, let's give the Honorable James Durkin a big round of applause.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much. It's good to be here. I'd like to thank the City Club for inviting me to speak here today. Jay and Ed, thank you for your invitation, and it's a good time to speak. And it's a good time to be out of Springfield, Illinois for the first time in about 3 years. But I'm also very fortunate to have my family. We have a very strong family. It was mentioned a little earlier about my 7 brothers, and I have 6 of them here today. My brother Tom, Kevin, Mike, Pat, Bob, and Bill. Terry's off in Florida. Gosh knows what he's doing there. But I know Tom's got a court call, so he's going to have me to move quickly. Otherwise, if you have a case before him, he'll grant you a continuance over the next 15 minutes. Grab him if you can. But I also want to introduce my wife, Celeste, who's here. And thank you for... Celeste, thank you for putting up with this god-awful schedule that I have. And when I told you 3.5 years ago, she asked me what the time commitment was going to be from my position as a member of the legislature as opposed to House Republican leader. I said just a little bit more. And then she told me within about 6 months, she sold me a bill of goods. So, and she's absolutely correct. So, but anyway, it's good to be here. I know the governor's back from his trip to the Far East. I'm not sure if it was China, Japan, the Pacific Rim, but I'm glad he was there, and I'm welcoming him back so we can start working on issues that are important to the state of Illinois and move Illinois further down the road. But this has been my fourth speech in as many years as I've been leader at the City Club, and it's great to be here, and it really is an honor for me to do this. Let me just say this. As the House Republican leader, I take an optimistic approach towards my position and also my vision for Illinois. I do this because I take this position very seriously because when you think of it, I'm one of 118 members of the Illinois House of Representatives, and there's 59 members of the state Senate who are charged with representing 12.8 million residents of the state of Illinois. That's serious. And we need to be mindful of that and focus on that when we go to Springfield every day. It's not about us, it's about the people that we represent. It's almost 13 million people. And I hope that my members and my colleagues remember that on a daily basis. I try to do that. Now, for the many years that I have been in this position, I have stressed the following. As long as both sides of the aisle respect the priorities of each other, we can solve virtually any issue of importance before the Illinois General Assembly. In my years, I've seen many initiatives flame out time and time again over the decades. And quite frankly, it's kind of like the Bears in the red zone. And boy, they've got red zone problems, guys, and as much as we do. We have red zone problems in Springfield. So Unfortunately, we're both in the same situation, but I think that we're going to probably move in a better direction than our friends over in the Soldier Field. But let me say this. But the initiatives that have been presented have been one-sided, pushed through by the majority party that were not in the best interest of the state of Illinois. These initiatives either failed or became bad law because meaningful input from the minority party was rejected. That attitude and brazen approach to Illinois government has been nothing less than an abject failure. That failure has resulted in higher unemployment, rising taxes, families and businesses fleeing the state of Illinois, and even worse, a lack of confidence in state government. But I hope in the last few years that we've learned a lesson. By working together with an open mind, we can fix the problems of our beloved state. Now let's take an example, the issue of public education funding reform. This particular issue has hung over the state capitol and in its hallways in the Capitol and the Stratton building for decades. Every legislator up and down this state, from Freeport to Chicago to Villa Park to Newton, where I was at last week, has stated that our state schools funding formula was broken. Now, in the past 5 years, bills drafted to change the funding formula routinely passed from the state Senate, only to be blocked in the House of Representatives by the House Democrat leadership, unfortunately. Now, this summer, we did pass a budget, not under the best terms, but we have a budget. However, that budget did not address how to fix our state's funding formula and left open the question on if our schools would actually get state appropriations. With state dollars uncertain, the daily threat of school closures and staff layoffs got loud and clear as the summer went on. No one wants that. We want our schools open on time. We want our children throughout the state of Illinois to have a quality education, no matter what the family income is or how rich or how poor their community is. A quality education that will create a foundation for success. A quality education that gives every child a shot at the future. A quality education that gives every child a chance to fulfill their hopes and dreams, to fulfill the American dream. And why not? Why not? I'm a very lucky person. I mentioned my family before, but the 8 of us grew up in West suburban Westchester, Illinois, in a very small house. My father was very successful, but my parents made great sacrifices for all 8 of us, incredible sacrifices. All of us went to the same grammar school, all of us went to the same high school, all 8 of us graduated from college, and 5 of us are practicing attorneys in the city of Chicago. And the other ones are gainfully employed. It's a joke and they're similar. But we were able to accomplish this, as I said, by the great sacrifice of our parents, but more so, the educational opportunities that were available to each one of us, and also because of that, the employment opportunities that the state of Illinois gave us, the Durkin family, has made us better people and ones that I know our parents are proud of. So I hope that this is what we can do for generations to come, and by making that very difficult decision in that tough bill that we just passed. Now, education funding has been a priority for Governor Rauner from the beginning of his tenure as governor. He had created a task force that really worked hard to produce solid results. I want to applaud my colleagues. I'm not sure if they're here. I don't think they're here, but Bob Pritchard from DeKalb, Avery Bourne, who's from the Litchfield area, Sherry Jessel from Lake County, and Christine Winger from DuPage County worked tirelessly with members of this bipartisan, bicameral task force for months and came upon a bipartisan framework that was equitable to all districts across the state. Sadly, here we go, red zone, that seemed to be kicked. I will say that the work that that commission created was kicked to the wayside as session went along. Negotiations would start, stop through session and the summer. I was as frustrated as every one of my colleagues, but also everyone in Illinois, and was not going to let the summer pass without concluding this issue. It just wasn't fair to the parents, students, and teachers to let this continue. I raised this issue with the governor and told them that a solution can only come to fruition if the individual negotiators step aside and the 4 legislative leaders took control. He agreed with me, and we started our work in earnest with the leaders to drive the best deal we can, and for once, a deal that reflects Republican priorities, education priorities. The leaders met a number of times to resolve this issue. Senate Leader Brady and I were in constant communication with the governor and his education secretary Beth Purvis, who just left, but I wish she was here, but she was fantastic, and I wish her well in her next chapter of her life, but also the staff. But during these meetings, something very odd happened. These legislative leader meetings. Get this. We got along. We discussed the issues freely, and we actually negotiated in good faith for the first time in over 3 years. And in the end, we found the pathway to bring this extremely important issue to a negotiated conclusion. And yes, the priorities of both Democrats and Republicans were achieved. For the Republicans, we were able to achieve what was once thought to be impossible, bringing a scholarship program to help students and parents, allow them to make a choice in low-income areas for a better education for their children. Other Republican principles, such as unfunded mandate relief, charter school parity, property tax relief, were all included in this bill. All of these issues, at one time or the other over the past many years, have been introduced and have never received a fair hearing. But they now are the law of Illinois. And I'm very proud of this work that we've done collaboratively between myself and also the Democrat leaders. We achieved an historic milestone, one which most observers didn't think could happen. So, for my colleagues, Democrats and Republicans who are here today and voted yes on Senate Bill 1947, that was the Education Reform Bill, thank you for your work, and please take a bow. And for those of you who voted no, remain seated. But that's not the only one we should be proud of this year, not the only initiative that we should be proud of. Just a few months ago, we also had another success that came to be through bipartisan negotiations. As everyone across the nation is aware of, our state, and specifically the city of Chicago, is plagued by gun violence, to the point that we are known across the nation for the murders that occur every day of the week in, week out. In 2016 alone, Chicago experienced 720 murders through handguns, 3,659 wounded from gun violence. That's just within the city of Chicago. What are we doing, and what are we not doing? But what I do know is the profile of those shooters who destroy neighborhoods daily, repeat gun offenders. This is corroborated by the men and women at the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and also the men and women and the heroes in the Chicago Police Department. I've talked to him and Eddie Johnson about this. He testified in committee with me. He was shot and he was wounded in a gun battle many years ago. I served as a prosecutor at 26 California back in the 90s, and this is an issue that I take very serious. It's very important to me. Now, back in January, when we had the swearing in of the legislature, new legislature, I made a statement at the swearing in of this General Assembly, and I said that we must address the plague of gun violence, especially that it occurs from repeat gun offenders. And just like solving school funding the crisis, Republicans and Democrat leaders, including the governor and the mayor of Chicago, we put partisanship aside to come to a solution that can reduce, that we believe will reduce, gun violence in Illinois, and specifically Chicago. Senate Bill 1722, which I was the chief House sponsor on, was signed into law in June, which will now give judges the ability to crack down on repeat gun offenders by meting out harsher penalties. I think it's good. Let these guys sit a little bit longer. Let them think about the consequences of their actions. Now, it sounds like it was an easy task, but it wasn't. It was a battle. And if any of you watched the debate in the committee or on the floor, I've been down there for a long time, and man, that was rough. That was real rough. But it was a difficult process with considerable pushback that I received from a variety of interests. But in the end, we got it done. I kept my commitment. For years, we've been trying to find a way to fix that problem. Again, it wasn't easy to find a solution that everyone agreed upon, but it was what compromise is all about. I wish I would have had more out of the bill, but the fact is the opponents didn't want much of it. But at the end of the day, we all agreed on something, and that's what compromise is about. And that's what adults do when you do have controversy or conflict. You compromise. And we've had two very important bills, two major public policy decisions where we as adults were able to reach a conclusion. Now, hopefully, in addition to seeing schools across our state treated equitably and fairly, we can hopefully down the future see a reduction in gun violence. Time will tell. And while these accomplishments are historic for Illinois, there is still a lot more that needs to be done. We are all aware that these bipartisan conversations must continue to make Illinois thrive again, and they will if we continue to have these conversations. In fact, today, the four legislative leaders, will be meeting again to discuss the future of our state. And I think that's good. It's very positive, and we need to meet more. If both sides are willing to work together, we can do great things. One thing that I'll bring up in the meeting is our need to do more with substantial and actually realistic property tax reform. I hear from every corner of the state that property taxes are hurting businesses and devastating homeowners, forcing out jobs and causing population decline. House Republicans will be taking that up this session because it is a priority for our party. And we want to make sure when we go to the table and we negotiate important issues that our priorities will be heard once again. And that's my commitment to my caucus and also to my constituents. Because I believe we've found a pathway. I'm not saying that we actually have completely broken the logjam, but I do believe that there is a light that is shining down on us. It's given us an opportunity to do things together in a collaborative manner. And I think at the end of it, I know that is what everybody in this room and every Illinoisan has been looking for some time. Bipartisan accomplishments are not easy, but they are necessary to bring Illinois back on track. Now, one last note, and I think we'll probably have some Q&A. In the past week, we learned that Attorney General Lisa Madigan has decided not to run for re-election. I received many calls on Friday, and matter of fact, my phone blew up from friends, family, and also from my friends all the way in the back of the room. See them back there, asking me about my interest in the job. I was very flattered, and I still am very flattered by those wonderful comments. I served as an assistant attorney general. I know the office. It's a job that I think I would be suited for. However, in January, I was sworn in as the House Republican leader, and I gave a commitment to my members that I would serve this term as leader to do what's best for our caucus. And I plan to keep my commitment, and I will not be running for Attorney General. But with that being said, I am pleased to endorse today, who is with us, I believe will be our nominee, Erica Harold, for our Republican nominee for Attorney General. Erica, can you stand up? I've seen her. She works very hard. We're going to give her a shot. And I'm asking my Republican colleagues to support her as well. It's going to be a tough fight, but I'm with her 100%. So with that, folks, as I said earlier, I take my job with a certain level of optimism because I think we have to. Our jobs are too important to let issues fall to the wayside because this is a great state that all of us have thrived in, all of our children have thrived in, and one which we've got to make sure that generations to come will have the same opportunities that we have right now. So with that, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's been, again, Jay, thank you, and thank you for allowing me just to speak for a few minutes. These are usually, the Q&As usually a little bit better, but again, I'm very humbled by the outpouring of support today. But all I got to say is let's wish the state of Illinois well, and we'll get better with a commitment by all members of the legislature to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Leader Durkin. And we have a number of questions.
Thank you.
I also want to recognize former State Representative Marlo Colvin, the Executive Vice President of ComEd. Marlo? By the way, Marlo is one of the #1 Cub fans. Yes. And whenever I look for him over weekends and that, the message is he's off in Cincinnati, St. Louis, whatever, bringing back the victory for our team. So thank you, Marlo. You've got a little more work to do. I want you to go up there and do something to those Brewers, okay? Great. We have a number of questions here. This is from Kim Godden with Superior Ambulance. I think they're sitting back there. Dan Proft has been critical of you on his morning show over the last several weeks. Any idea why he would be doing this? It seems strange because you are both good Republicans. It's a city club.
I didn't know that Dan Proft had a radio show. Well, I don't know.
That was excellent. This question's from Don Davis with the Bronner Group. Don, where are you? Right down here. Good. Do you have any updates on the initiative to consolidate the numerous units of local government?
Well, the short answer is no. And it's been an issue that the governor has tried to develop over the last 3 years with the Lieutenant Governor Sanguinetti. But when you try to consolidate government, you run against enormous interests who are protective of their turf. Things have to change in Springfield. Let me just say this. You help me win 9 seats and we'll get there, okay?
Okay. This is from Committeeman Tim Egan, the head of Roseland Hospital. The Illinois Hospital Association just announced its plan to reduce Roseland Hospital's assessment funds by 83%. Will your caucus make sure any new assessment plan is fair?
Hey, Tim, what happened to the softballs? Jesus. Where you at? Where you at, Tim? All right. Yeah, Tim, we'll be fair. But there's only, just remember, there's only X amount of dollars to go around. We'll be fair, but the fact is we have to be mindful of the liabilities and the debt that we currently still have, which we have not fully addressed, in which I hope we will address at least a good portion of it. I know the governor plans to go out in the market to sell about $8 billion of bonds within the next 2 months, but that still leaves about anywhere from a $6 to a $7 billion hole that we have in unpaid bills. So when we start talking about whether it's cuts or it's going to be increases in any type of these assessments, we have to be very careful. But Tim, we'll be fair. But I will say this, that we will be fair across the board. And everyone, I hope, will realize the situation that we are in, that we are still not in good times, but we will have, if we do the right thing over the next few years, we can get to a position where we can be, I think, more generous with the way in which we reimburse individuals for health care costs.
Okay, this is another health-related question from Jay Shannon, the head of the Cook County Hospital Systems. The Affordable Care Act can certainly be improved, but it got 1 million Illinoisans insurance, got us to the lowest uninsured numbers in modern history. Long question. What will the Illinois General Assembly do to assure continued coverage for all Illinoisans?
Well, this issue came up a few years ago, and I didn't support it because we didn't have the money to do it, because under the ACA, the state was going to be taking on a greater responsibility of the cost. And at the time, we couldn't afford it. We still cannot afford it right now. I would hope that we can revisit the issue, but at this moment, there is no way in which we can predict how this is going to be paid down the line, because everything that our fears and our thoughts and concerns that we raised during the course of this issue are now coming to fruition. So I'm sorry, but I don't have a good answer for it. But it was something we could not afford then, and I don't think we still can afford yet.
Okay. Couple questions that I would like to ask. Number one, what do you think the state of Illinois should do, the governor, the mayor of Chicago, to try to bring a company like Amazon to Illinois?
Wow, it's a very topical question, because the Lieutenant Governor, Leslie Munger, who is taking the lead on this, is currently in Seattle with a delegation from the city of Chicago. So I'm pleased to announce today they're one of 50 states that's in the running. So that's very... We'll find out. I don't think we need to give away the store like Wisconsin just did with the billions of dollars it did for Foxconn, but we need to be competitive. I plan to meet with the governor over the next few days. This is one of the issues that I'm going to bring up. Look, we'll do whatever we can, but I do know that the competition is very heavy, and anytime you start talking about incentives, it brings out some of the worst in people down in Springfield. So, but we need to make a pitch. We need to be responsible. We can't oversell what we can deliver as well. And I think that's the problem when you have in these situations. You'll have states that are going to promise everything, but sometimes they come short, because when you do that, you make these promises. The legislature is the one who actually has to prove it. And it's usually the chief executive, it's the governor, who's going out and making the pitch. And there's no guarantee that a House or the Senate is going to buy into it. So as I said, when you make the pitch, be reasonable and don't oversell what you can deliver.
Some pretty good one-liners, James, you know. Okay. A number of members of the legislature have announced that they're retiring on both sides of the aisle. Your predecessor and our City Club Speaker, Christine Radonio. Just this weekend, Barbara Flynn Curry from the opposite side of the aisle. You mentioned Bob Pritchard and the Education Commission. He was on a panel that we did several months ago. What does this mean in terms of the future of government in Illinois and your leadership within the House?
A lot of those names that we just mentioned are hitting about 70, or they're over 70 years old. So I would just consider that natural attrition that we have in the House. That's something, I would say that's part of it. Patty Bellock we're lucky we had her. And Patty, thank you for the work you've done. Patty is a national expert on Medicaid and health care reform, so she's been an absolute, we've been fortunate to have her. But Patty has told me, I mean, just keeping her on this past term has been very difficult. She's got she's got grandchildren are scattered on the East Coast, West Coast, and I don't blame her. She says that, you know what, I've got to spend more time with my family. But that's a consideration a lot of the men and women had, is that they've done their service. They feel that they can't do any more. We have other members that I think have just unfortunately walked into the process and they felt that this is not what they're ready for and not something they want to be part of. And I understand that. I respect it. But when people come into this position, it is not an easy job. It never was intended to be. And it's an extremely partisan environment. And I will say that what's happened over the past 3 years and the logjam, and I think some of the antagonism, the stress and the anxiety that people have down there, it just wasn't working for them. So I understand that. So I would just say that while we are losing many outstanding men and women who have convinced themselves that they've made their contribution, other ones have decided that this is not the type of process they want to be in. And that happens every 2 years. But the fact is, we still need good men and women, and I encourage, we're going to be involved with another election over the next year and a half, but I still believe that this is one of the most noble causes and callings that you have in the state of Illinois, and that's to fix the state of Illinois. It's not easy. I'm in the minority party. I was in the super minority party 2 years ago, but we took ourselves out of it, and we've been able to negotiate and compromise on some pretty big issues, which I just discussed. But it's just a tough environment, and I respect people. I will not criticize them, but I respect any individual decision that they make and why they choose not to run for re-election. But as I said earlier, it's tough. Washington's tough, and I think we're seeing it in every area, whether in every state and every even local governments. It just gets more challenging. But again, challenges are what life is about, and that's what we need to be focused on. And I know my colleagues share the same feeling.
Thank you, Jim. We have a couple more questions. You gave your endorsement to the Republican candidate for Attorney General, and there's at least one Republican candidate that we know of running for governor. Any clues about who might represent the party for Secretary of State and, I believe, Comptroller?
No, I haven't. I know that the state party is actively recruiting to find good, committed individuals to run for those offices. And this, again, is part of the discussion I have with the governor. The AG race is going to be very exciting. I believe that Erica will be our nominee, and on the Democrat side, you're seeing everybody with a law degree is actually putting their name in. So let's see the chips fall where they may.
And by the way, I don't think you need to have a law degree to be the Attorney General. So anybody who's not an attorney, and you're looking to spend some money, be our guest. You mentioned the need to fix Illinois, and I think there was a recent study released by United Van Lines indicating that they have moved more executive-type people out of the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago than any of the other major metropolitan areas, L.A., New York, and so on. Any thoughts about what we can do to keep people in the state of Illinois, to keep young people who are graduating from Illinois universities or who've left Chicago or Illinois to attend school elsewhere because of the uncertainty with regard to funding for education, higher education in Illinois, to keep them in the state because of the tremendous loss of their skills, knowledge, and we need them for the future?
Well, that's the billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar question. But I said earlier about how great this state was when I grew up, and it saddens me that we're in this position, that we're carrying debt. Let's be perfectly clear that the decisions that have been made over the past 20 years, whether it's our pension systems, but also positions that were extremely partisan, ones which had a very, very adverse effect upon the employers of Illinois. The employers are the ones who put the middle class to work. They're the ones that make sure that the middle class can turn on the lights, feed their children, bring their kids to school. Things became very difficult upon them, and I wish they would not have left, but we're seeing that, and I hope that at some point we can stop this bleeding that we have in the state of Illinois, but it's directly related to tax policy and also policies that are coming on in Springfield, which I find over the years have been very anti-employer. And if you are a small, medium, mom and pop or a large manufacturer, if you can cut a better deal in Indiana, Iowa, Wisconsin, you got to do it. And that's what's happening. So we're in a battle, and we'll continue to have this battle, but I think that people are starting to realize what has happened, and employers and people are voting with their feet. They're leaving the state of Illinois. And it's sad, and it's directly related to the, I think, poor policies that have come out of Springfield, because that has not allowed us to help build up a manufacturing base or any type of industrial base. We've seen that just wither away. And they made a decision that's best for their employers and also their stockholders. And I can't change that. But like I said, help me win 9 seats and we'll change it.
Thank you very much. Let's give Jim Durkin a big round of applause.